Good morning. Now that Obsidian Mobile has been released for iPhone and iPad on the App Store, I thought it would be a good idea to give you an overview about what it is and what it does. So firstly, Obsidian is a note-taking tool and it works on macOS, Windows and Linux, and it's been out for about a year. It creates notes using a plain text format called Markdown. And when you create these notes, it focuses on using links to create relationships between content. So when I go through some examples, that will become a bit clearer. So first of all, I thought it would be useful to see an example of Markdown without actually giving a tutorial about how to write Markdown. It is helpful to think that Markdown is very easy to read, it is easy to learn, it is quick to type, but it is also readable by a computer. And when I go through the example, you'll see it's also very, very flexible and very, very portable. So it means you are not locked into a system. If you decide to move away from Obsidian in the future, then you can do. Nothing's locking you in, unlike other note-taking platforms such as Notion, Obsidian. I don't know about Roam, but some of the other platforms, it is a bit more difficult to move your data in and out of those systems. So let's go into Obsidian to see a Markdown example. I'm not going to go through all of the details about how to write Markdown, but you can see we've got these syntax to show. That's for a heading 1. You can see you've got different syntax for a heading 2. We've got, we can create links, we can create lists, we can even add links to other content within our folder, within our note-taking system. We can have numbered lists and so on. So I am now in the Markdown editing mode within Obsidian. If I press Command E, then I go into the preview mode when it is rendered for how it actually looks. Okay, that is a basic example, but you can see how it works with the Markdown syntax. And if I go into the folder view in files, you can see if I go into my iCloud, and if I go into Obsidian, it's in a folder, and you can see all of my Markdown content is within that folder. And that means that I am not restricted to using the Obsidian app to actually add standard Markdown files into my notes. And I can also move them around. So if I suddenly decide that I want to move my notes where they are at the moment in iCloud, to say Google Drive or OneDrive, or another cloud system, or locally, I can do that. I own that data. I'm not restricted in any way where I can put my data. So as I said before, Obsidian has been around since last year in the desktop environment, and I am happy to say that the mobile version has about 95% of the functionality of the full desktop version. There are a couple of things that are not working very well at the moment. Not all of the extra utility plugins are working on the mobile version, and you don't have as much choice about where you save your data. If you're saving it, you're either saving it locally or in iCloud. There are some workarounds for that, and I'm sure that will be extended in the fullness of time. And also, I can't see in the Obsidian mobile version a way of exporting your notes to PDF, whereas that functionality is built into the desktop version, certainly in the Windows version that I've used before. So let's go through some of the basic things that you can do in Obsidian Mobile, and I think in future videos I'll do more of a deep dive in some of those areas, but I'm just going to give an overview about what you can do. So I've said before, you can write your notes in Markdown. It's helpful to think about where our notes are saved. So you can see they're saved into a folder, and Obsidian calls these folders a vault. So when you first go into Obsidian and you say, oh, I want to create my notes in this area, you have to define or create a vault. So let's go into Obsidian and show you how that works. So we've got all of our different options at the side. So if I click on open another vault, I can either create a new vault, and I'd have to give it a name and then decide when I create it if I am going to store it in iCloud. So this is a new I wouldn't say limitation, but they do force you to decide if you're going to save your notes into iCloud when you define your vault. So for the rest of the video, when I talk about the folder where I save my notes, I am talking about an Obsidian vault, and I will use that term. Now, when you've defined the iCloud syncing or backup option, it means that when you create a note on the iPad version, it will automatically be synced to your iCloud. And that means if you're using Obsidian on the iPhone, you will get those notes straight away. And that syncing works in two ways. You can use Obsidian on the iPhone in exactly the same way to create your notes, and they get synced and you see them on your iPad. I think there's absolutely no difference between how the iPhone and the iPad version works. Sorry, there was a pause there because I was thinking about the Android version as well, which I have not used. So this video, when I'm talking about Obsidian Mobile, I'm only talking about the iPad and iPhone versions. They are exactly the same, except that the iPhone version uses a smaller screen. It's got smaller screen real estate to work with. And many iPad users will either be using like some sort of keyboard, whether it's the Magic Keyboard, the Smart Keyboard, and in my case, I am currently using a Logitech K380 Bluetooth keyboard, and I'll be using shortcut keys to do things like create notes and switch views. So that's not really going to be used by most iPhone users unless they add a keyboard somehow, which you can do, but that's not standard use, is it? So one thing I really like about Obsidian for the iPad and the iPhone is that it is free for everyday use, and there are no restrictions on the number of notes that you can create, and there are no restrictions on the number of devices that can use an iCloud syncing vault, providing you stay within the iCloud ecosystem. But there are some paid options if you need them. So if you are doing cross-platform syncing, such as using Windows, Linux, Android, in addition to the Obsidian Mobile app for iPad and iPhone, there is an option for Obsidian Sync at $4 a month. And if you want any of your notes to go from private to public, basically as a web page, then you can pay an additional $4 a month to get Obsidian Publish. There is no need to spend any more money now that Obsidian Mobile is available to everyone through the App Store. I've been using it for a couple of months, and I did get an insider membership from Obsidian directly, so I could use the beta a bit earlier, and I paid $25 for that, but people don't need to do that now. So let's talk about links. So within Obsidian, links are regarded as first-class citizens. So it's all about relationships between content. And I'm going to show you how we can use links to jump around between content, and how we can actually build new content when we build links to things that don't already exist. It's probably easier to show it in context within Obsidian. So let's go in here. I am going to go back to my vault, which I use, my personal vaults, which I mainly use for journal entries and for writing notes about books and content that I'm consuming. So I'm going to enter that vault, and I'm going to go from that mundane example about like glossing paint to a journal entry. So in the best style of Blue Peter, I'm going to open up something that I've prepared earlier on. So the way that you can name your notes anything you like, I tend to code them so it makes it easy for sorting. And at the end, I've got a suffix where I put year, month, and day, so it sorts in the correct date order. Right, so I've got my note here, so I'm just going to talk about how I can use links. So I'm going to go to the Markdown view. And if you notice, when you create a link, you've got this rectangular bracket, and then you put the name of the page that you're linking to, and then that closes. So if I was going to link to another page that I've made before, let's link to my Kindle highlights from that book by Viv Albertine. So I've got lots of my Kindle highlights in a folder. It's linked to that page. So when I go to preview, I've got a link and I can jump to that. I like those quotes quite a lot. And if we're talking about links and then using keyboard shortcuts to jump around your Obsidian Vault, if I, on my keyboard, you can't see me pressing it now, but if I press Alt and the Command key and then the left arrow key, I jump back to where I was before. So that's a link to a page that I have already created. But what if I want to create a new page? Well, that's easy. So I might make a page called, let's call it next year's plans, now that the pandemic is hopefully going to be ending soon. Let's say I've got a document where I want to write journal entries about things that I want to do next year. I have not yet created that page, but I've created a link to an empty page. It doesn't exist yet. Now, if I preview it, you can see that that page is much dimmer because it doesn't exist yet. But as soon as I click on it, it has created that page. I don't have to worry about saving it. It saves all of your content into your vault as you go along. So I think that is really, really powerful. Right, let's go back to where we were before, because I'm going to be using that. And let's go back to the presentation, just so as a prompt. Right, you can see I have used hashtags to help me categorize the notes. So that is very common to all sorts of note-taking systems, whether it's Evernote, Notion. But the reason we use tags is they're basically soft links that allow us to assign multiple categories to a single piece of information. So if you think back to the bad old days of people saving Word documents into a folder within a folder within a folder, let's go to the folder view so we can see that. Let's say I save a document into a particular folder, it is going to be siloed, and it makes it very, very difficult to actually retrieve it and to make connections between information if it's restricted within its own little folder within a folder within a folder within these rigid hierarchies, which become unwieldy and difficult to manage and even to remember where you've put things. The beauty about adding these tags followed by a keyword without any space is that later on I can search, I can make relationships between things, and information can be quite fluid and it can belong to more than one category at the same time. So it makes it much more flexible and useful if we're trying to piece and make connections between our knowledge within our system. Another thing, if we're talking about relationships and the power of links, is the idea of backlinks. So when we link to a page, the page we're linking to keeps a record of who's been linking to it. And I really wish the internet would adopt backlinks as a kind of a standard. Let me show you how backlinks work. So I have linked here to my Kindle notes about The Girl with All the Gifts, which is a horror novel which I've really been enjoying, which is actually set near where I live in Hertfordshire. Now, if I follow that link, and if I go to the more options at the side here, you can see it's got the backlinks with link mentions. So it's saying that a journal entry I wrote on the 2nd of June was linking to that to this page that I'm on, as does the journal entry from today. So it means that I've got a record and I can see when I was writing and linking to those other pages. And let's say you're a student and you're studying and you're making connections between pieces of knowledge, you can track that and see that and develop and these patterns and relationships can emerge, which I think is really, really powerful if you're studying and trying to deepen your understanding by seeing connections and relationships between what you're studying. Not only can we see the relationships between individual pages, but we can get a global overview about the whole system, how it all links together. And we've got that within Obsidian, and you've got it in other note-taking systems as well, such as Roam Research and Logseek, I think's got that, to be fair. But yes, we've got that in Obsidian, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Now, I've been using it for daily journal entries, so it's not that meaningful, but it's very cool and it's very visual. So if we go to our options here, if we click on this graph view, you can see all of your different pages and you can see how it links together. And on the mobile version, you can use touch to zoom in or out. So if you're developing clusters of knowledge and seeing how they piece together, then it will give you that sort of global overview if you want to start reviewing and retrieving older content. We've got our searches, so we can search for keywords or we can search for tags. Let's go back to my file explorer, and if I do a search, so I've done a search for tags, so all of my journal entries are listed because they're tagged with journal. If I get rid of that, and let's say that I want to search for all my pages that have got China as a keyword in that, I just type that in, and before I even type enter, it lists all of my pages that have got the word China within them. So that's a really powerful way of searching. Again, it's making it easy for you to not only just take a note, but to actually use it later on and retrieve it and then start piecing together links and relationships between things that you've been note-taking about. We can also extend the use of Obsidian with plugins. Obsidian have made their own and they are turned on by default. But the community is fantastic. They have been extending the use of it. The community plugins are not enabled by default, so you have to turn off. Sorry, you have to. Let's go into it because that makes more sense rather than me stumbling across my words. You go to community plugins. If the safe mode is off, then you can browse through and install community plugins. Okay, you can see through there. There are 238 that are listed. Not all of them work at the moment on Obsidian Mobile for iOS and iPad. But there are some that do work, and a couple that I do really like. You've got the Kanban plugin, and that lets you drag and drop content between multiple columns, like a Kanban board. Like you've got the Trello app, which is all about Kanban displays, say for task management or categorization. Another one I really, really like is Data View, which allows you to do very structured searches on the headings and the tags on other pages, and to display all the results of that in a table or in a structured list in a page. So it creates content based on search results. So that's really powerful as well. I'm not going to get into showing how that all works. That deserves its own video. But just to let you know that there is it is extensible, just like Chrome extensions on Google Chrome, and these are going to be developed and add greater functionality to Obsidian over time. Right, where are we now? Not only can you extend the use of Obsidian with plugins, but you can change how it looks. So if we go into the settings and we look at appearance, you can browse through different themes and choose one which matches your needs. Now, some seem to display and render better on an iPad or an iPhone compared with others. Some are probably more optimal for using on the desktop. So a lot of it will be personal preference. Personally, I like having a dark theme and having a few colors to color code the headings. But this is a case of choosing a theme that matches your needs. Though you're not restricted to the themes that are there, you could build your own theme or even rewrite existing themes because it's all CSS. So you have that freedom to be able to make it how you want. Okay, the final big thing I'm going to be talking about is the ability to embed content from elsewhere within your vault. So the sorts of things that you can embed are PDFs, images, even a copy of another page, or even parts of a page, whether it's a heading or a block. Now this deserves its own sort of deep dive video, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it's just if you put an exclamation mark in front of the content that you are linking to, it will grab it and put it inside your Obsidian page. And that process is called transclusion. So when they talk about transcluding links, they're talking about embedding. Now, Obsidian is using Markdown, which is basically like a de facto internet standard which has developed over time. And you've got a couple of flavors of Markdown that have developed, such as on GitHub have got their own version or subset of Markdown. And the use of transclusion with that exclamation mark, from what I believe, is not strictly part of the Markdown standard. So if you take your pages to a different system later on, it may not render the linked content. So that's just something to be aware of. But it's not such a hardship to see a link with an exclamation mark if you have to move your content from Obsidian at some point in the future. Shall we go into our page and then just see how that is working? So if I go back, right, let's embed some content. Let's go into the Markdown view. So all I need to do is, let's put in a PDF. So if I put in exclamation mark and I'm going to go into my attachments folder where all the attachments are kept. It'd help if I could spell attachments. Let's do that again. Right, attachments there, and I'm going to put in my handwritten notes from the Feeling Good book. And if I go into there, into the preview mode, you can see it's embedded the PDF. There are more things you can do to control which page you view and even the size, but you can embed that content in that way. And I'm not going to get into it now, but each paragraph is listed as like a block of text, and you can repurpose content from one page to another using this transclusion or embed process. Okay, and last but not least, I'm just going to pay a little bit of a homage, a bit of a shout out to the lovely, friendly community of experts who have been supporting each other in their journey to become more familiar with Obsidian in particular, and in general with the whole process of note-taking and knowledge management. And there's definitely a very strong interest in Nicholas Luhmann's Zettelkasten process, which is at the heart of a lot of the knowledge management that's going on. So you've got the Obsidian forum, you've got a very active Discord group, you've got a Reddit about Obsidian, but there's also some really good walkthroughs, tutorials and demonstrations on YouTube channels, particularly Brian Jenks' Effective Remote Working, Linking Your Thinking, and Santi Younger's YouTube channels, among others. So that's been where I've done a lot of my learning on it, in addition to just playing with Obsidian and exploring what it has to offer. So I am really, really excited about using this for my own knowledge management, and I've started creating content in another vault, which is not just for personal reasons, but in my job. As a teacher and technology coordinator at a small alternative school. So I'm going to be using it for curriculum planning. And I'm also interested in showing staff and even students how they could use that for their own documentation, for their own note-taking, for their own learning. I've got a 12-year-old son who is about to be allocated an iPad at his secondary school, and I am going to encourage his school to allow or to install Obsidian on the devices so that students can then start making connected notes so that they can make bridges or relationships between different areas of study. And I think that's what will propel students from just knowing about something in a small subject to actually seeing how it all fits together in a big jigsaw piece. So that's what I'm thinking about now, and that's why I'm so excited about using Obsidian Mobile on my iPad, which is my main computer, and other platforms as well. So anyway, I hope you've found some benefit in what I've been talking about this morning. And if you would like to find out more, I will be releasing a video probably in a week or so, now that I'm getting a bit more time over the summer holidays. You can always add a comment, you can always like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Enjoy your day. Thank you.